Ladies and gentlemen, friends of Viking.TV, Γεια σας, hello και καλώς ήρθατε and welcome to this episode of At Home In. Today presenting the biggest, the most diverse, the most amazing of the Greek Isles, the mythical island of Crete. My name is Vangelis. Among other things, I'm a certified tour guide 20 years now, and I'm simply delighted to be hosting you in the beautiful island where I was born and bred myself. Our escapade in Crete will begin right here, in gorgeous Chania, one of the most ambient towns in the whole of Greece. From here, we're going to drive inland, and I'm going to show you some really cool sights of the surrounding area, while the second part of this episode will be dedicated to my hometown, the bustling Mediterranean harbor of Heraklion. Along the way, I'll be introducing you to friends. I will be sharing tips regarding the local culture and cuisine. And I'm going to get you as excited as I can, so that in the very near future, I will see you on the next Viking cruise to my island. Now, first things first, let us learn how to properly pronounce the name of the town. On maps and road signs, you see it spelled with Chania, so it makes perfect sense that you say Chania, which simply confuses everyone. The C is silent, and the proper way to say the word is Chania. Chania has a remarkable 5,000-year-long history, and it's an amazing blend of multiple cultures of civilizations overlapping. I know that if I start presenting the history of the last 5,000 years in a chronological order, I will lose you in the next 20 seconds. So for now, I will be very, very happy if you simply remember that in the last 5,000 years, Minoans, followed by Greeks, then the Romans, then Byzantine, then Arabs, then Byzantine again, followed by Venetians, then the Ottomans, and then finally the Greeks. All these cultures left an ever-present mark on the local culture, language, art, and architecture. Together, in our walking tour around Chania, we're going to see monuments and buildings from different eras, and I'm pretty sure, I'm confident that at the end it will all make perfect sense. You'll see. The imposing red building you see dominating the Venetian harbor area is the Maritime Museum of Crete. The chairman of the museum was kind enough to let me collect some footage to share with you in order to give you a taste of the very interesting collection it houses. Maritime history buffs will get super excited to see here models of ships from different periods, ancient to modern, all of them made on the premises. Also maps, weapons and equipment are exhibited, and one should not miss out on the World War II collection in the first floor. Now, I know that most of you are perhaps not aware of Crete's significance in World War II. In May 1941, villagers on the island were amazed to see a huge flock of black metal birds unloading Hitler's elite fighters, 15,000 well-trained and perfectly equipped paratroopers. The Battle of Crete, that Hitler expected to last no more than 48 hours, went on for an astonishing 10 days, as Crete was defended by 28,000 Commonwealth soldiers with an army of untrained locals fighting on their side. With axes, pitchforks and rocks, they fought a heroic battle that cost the Germans massive casualties. 4,500 of the total 15,000 German paratroopers are now buried in the Maleme War Cemetery not far from here, while 1,500 of the island's defenders rest in peace in the Suda Bay Commonwealth War Cemetery. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to Commander Manolis Petrakis, chairman of the Maritime Museum, and thank him for the opportunity, for his generosity, I should say, to shoot some footage inside the museum for you to have a better idea. Commander, would you like to say something to our guests?
Thank you very much. We came here and we'll be happy to have the guests of the Viking visiting our museum.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
What a view, folks, huh? Behind me is the iconic lighthouse, landmark of the Venetian harbor of Chania. The fortress where we are, known in Venetian times as Revellino al Porto, the fortress of the harbor, was defending the commercial harbor of Chania with some heavy artillery. And even if an enemy ship managed somehow to make it through intact, there was a thick chain from here to the lighthouse that was blocking the mouth of the harbor. In Ottoman times, that is after the 17th century, the fortress was used as barracks. The word for barracks in Turkish is firkas, and that's the name that locals use today to describe this place. Now, this particular corner is extremely important for the more recent history of the island, for it is here, on the 1st of December 1913, where for the first time the colors of Greece were flown to officially announce the union between Crete and the motherland, Greece. Think about that. Although the first sovereign Greek state formed after the Greek struggle for independence in 1830, it took Crete another 3/4 of a century until they managed to fulfill their eternal dream and become one with Greece. Although I feel how tempted you are to walk along the harbor promenade, I will ask you for now to follow me to the Venetian quarter of Chania Old Town, just one block back, to explore a magnificent maze of narrow streets and alleys featuring gorgeous Renaissance mansions all around. Many of these majestic buildings in this area that 4 centuries ago housed some of the most prominent Venetian families of Chania have recently been restored to the original glory and now accommodate guests as deluxe boutique hotels, where one is transported back to the late Renaissance. There is something to discover around every corner, and anywhere you look, you will find cute shops, restaurants and cafes hidden from the typically busy harbor area. Just a couple of minutes from the Venetian quarter, you may reach Etz Hayim Synagogue, the only active synagogue of Crete. During the war, the Jews of Chania were sent to Heraklion, where they boarded a ferry that would take them to Athens in order to be taken from there to Auschwitz. All of them were lost at sea though, as the ferry never made it to its destination, since it was torpedoed twice by a British submarine. Now, for the synagogue building, it was looted and badly damaged, just like any other during the war, but it was restored some 20 years ago to accommodate the few remaining local Jews and foreign visitors. It was originally a 15th century Catholic church that was converted to a synagogue in the 17th century. Most interesting is the still working ritual bath known as the mikveh, the oldest working one in Greece. And here, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to use the opportunity to thank Anya, who received us and gave us a chance to show you around the synagogue's interior.
Thank you, Vangelis, for visiting, and I hope that guests of the Viking cruise will come and visit us and learn about Cretan Jewish history, 2,500 years of that, and we're happy to give you a tour anytime.
Thank you so much.
Leaving the synagogue, we found ourselves one more in the gorgeous waterfront setting of the Venetian harbor. The landmark that immediately catches the eye is the Küçük Hasan Mosque, also known as Yali Jami, the Mosque by the Sea. It is actually the first public building the Ottomans erected after the conquest, and from the very beginning it was intended to serve as a mosque. Every other mosque in this town was originally some Christian church converted by the Ottomans. To achieve such a conversion, they would add the necessary minaret and other features like the mihrab, the niche facing Mecca where the Holy Quran is kept, the minbar, the mosque's pulpit, and a fountain outside for the ritual cleansing prior to the prayer. The area around the mosque is always busy, and you may find numerous waterfront cafes offering refreshing beverages. But as this area is too busy for me, I will walk to the more serene end of the harbor promenade, where I'm going to meet a friend for lunch, away from this always busy, bustling part of the harbor. On my way to a delicious lunch and a refreshing glass of local wine, I am passing by the Venetian Arsenali. These long, tall, stone-built structures were built by the Venetians in order to be used as storage and maintenance facilities for a number of galleys that were stationed here. Originally, there was no wall at the front, just a ramp that made it possible to pull a boat out of the water for maintenance. After the Ottoman conquest, the Turks built walls thus cancelling the original purpose of the arsenale. And since then, they have been used as storage rooms. This part of the harbour I'm very fond of because it is away from the hustle and bustle of the more touristy area by the Yali Jami. There is a number of taverns and restaurants serving excellent food, from typical Greek appetizers to the catch of the day, if you fancy fresh fish. But today, I'm meeting for lunch my old comrade Yannis Platsidakis, owner of the iconic Porto Venetian hotel. Yannis is hosting me for lunch to reminisce about our adventure in the Aegean Sea back in the summer of 2004, and I will tell you all about it shortly. After this delicious lunch with my friend Yannis, and just 30 steps away from the restaurant, I can now show you what kind of an adventure we were involved in back in 2004.
Folks, I'm so excited to be able to show this to you. We are inside one of the 17 Venetian arsenals. Actually, this arsenale is managed by the Maritime History Museum of Crete that we saw earlier. And I'm proud to be on board of a very special exhibit, the replica of a Minoan ship, and her name is in fact Minoa. Back in 2003, two traditional, skilled local shipbuilders worked for an entire year, designed and built this amazing vessel that in the context of 2004 Olympics, actually in June 2004, set sail from here, from the Venetian harbor of Chania, and reached, believe it or not, Piraeus, the port of Athens. Personally, as soon as I heard what was going on here, I immediately dropped what I was doing and volunteered as crew. After months of training and hard work, a good crew was assembled, and we managed to sail the way our ancestors would have done back in 1500 BC. Now try to imagine that, from here to Piraeus, what your captain on board Viking cruises would do in 7 to 8 hours. Well, that to us took nearly 3 weeks of sailing and rowing. Makes me exhausted just to recall the experience.
The next place I'd like to show you is the covered municipal market of Chania, also known as the Agora. Whatever you decide to do in Chania, do not miss the chance to visit it. Built in 1913 and officially opened just 3 days after the declaration of the Enosis, the union of Crete with modern Greece, the Agora houses 76 shops in an impressive structure shaped like a gigantic cross with access from all 4 sides. You will find everything here, from fresh fish and meats to strong local cheeses, bread and pastry, olive oil products, and souvenirs.
In this market alone, locally called the Agora, you can spend a couple of hours exploring and discovering new flavors. One of the things you shouldn't be missing out on is this, called calzoni. Does sound like the Italian calzone, because at the end of the day, it's a dough pouch. A Cretan calzoni, if you're in central Crete, is stuffed with sweet ricotta, honey and cinnamon flavored, and it's simply delicious. This ricotta and honey is simply unbeatable. But let me share a secret with you. When you're in West Crete, in Chania, then a calzoni looks like that. Again, it's a pouch, only this time it's filled with spinach and local greens harvested on the arid slopes of the mountains. Savory side. Cheese, bread, pastry. It all tastes amazing, but there is something I want to see you taste when you're here. Cretan snails. Nothing like the French escargot you know. Perhaps we'll arrange something for you later in this episode. Another place in Chania, the covered municipal agora, the marketplace where you can stay busy for hours. Shop owners are so friendly. Don't be afraid, don't hesitate to interact. Even if you're not buying quantities, they'll still have you. So, give it a chance. Come, explore, discover, taste new things. From here, just a block's distance, Leather Street, also known as Stivanadica or Leather Lane. Let's go check it out, and then we're going to do some explorations in the surrounding area.
A block away from the Agora is Leather Lane, also known as Leather Street, and among locals as Stivanadica. Stivania are the high boots made of soft leather that men wear in traditional events and ceremonies. Numerous Stivania manufacturers had their workshops here, and until a few years ago, the men of Chania and nearby villages would come here to have their measurements taken for a new pair of Stivania. With the number of customers shrinking dramatically in recent years, most of the workshops were converted to leather products selling venues. You may find here from random tourist junk to really good bargains, quality leather goods at very good prices, and I think that you should definitely include a visit next time you're in Chania. As much as I'd like to spend more time in this beautiful town, it is now time for me to head east towards the island's capital. Leaving the hustling and bustling Chania behind, I am going to transfer you briefly to the scenic Akrotiri Peninsula, a beautiful area lush with vineyards and ancient olive groves just a few minutes away from Chania. The monastery of Agia Triada, dedicated to the Holy Trinity, is one of the highlights here in Akrotiri, and definitely worth your visit. With an Ottoman invasion imminent, this large compound was designed and built like a fortress by the Zagaroli brothers Lorenzo and Gerbi in the early 1600s. Surrounded by vines and a massive olive grove, Agia Triada thrived to become one of the most prosperous and respected religious establishments, even during the years of the harsh Ottoman rule. Nowadays, the monastery houses an exquisite collection of Byzantine icons and manuscripts, and the hard-working monks still cultivate the estate, producing extra virgin olive oil of high quality and premium wines you have to taste should you visit the area. A scenic drive along a beautiful coastline will lead us to Heraklion, but en route I have to take a detour into the island's little-known interior to include a quick stop at the famous monastery of Arkari, also known as Crete's Alamo. Arkari is by far the most celebrated historical monument in Crete, and it is here where in the year 1866, during the Great Cretan Uprising, 300 brave Cretans defended the compound against an army of 15,000 Ottomans. The siege of Arkari lasted 2 days, and at the end it was overrun by waves of attackers. With all hope lost, 700 women and children who had been hiding inside sought refuge behind thick stone walls in the chamber where gunpowder was kept. With thousands of enemies closing in, the last few men inside decided to set fire to the gunpowder, and the massive explosion killed everyone inside the munition chamber, together with hundreds of Turks outside. The battle was lost for Christians, and once more an uprising failed. But since that day, the 8th of November 1866 is celebrated all around the island, and to this day Arcadi is seen as Crete's ultimate symbol of resistance and sacrifice for the great cause of freedom. A visit here will definitely help you understand Crete's relatively recent turbulent past and the circumstances that finally led to the union with Greece half a century later. The next morning finds me in the beautiful setting of the Venetian harbor in Heraklion. As your ship approaches, the first thing catching your eye is the formidable Coules, the Venetian fortress protecting the harbor. It was built in the 16th century, and the engineers were confronted with a great challenge. There was simply not enough land to build them, as most of this area was underwater. The solution they came up with was pretty remarkable, as they sent dozens of old ships to the neighboring Isle of Dia, loaded them with huge boulders, sailed back to this point, and sank them intentionally to create a solid foundation for the new fortress. The fortress's external walls measuring a staggering 27 feet, and with more than 40 formidable cannons, Coules, or the Rocca al Mare as Venetians called it, was functioning as an unsinkable battleship made of stone that was docked eternally here to guard the city and its people. Combine this fortress with a massive fortification wall protecting the city, and you'll understand why Heraklion, Chania as it was called in Venetian times, holds a world record. A world record regarding how long a siege can go on for. Believe it or not, it took the Ottomans 22 consecutive years to take the city back in 1669. Like the locals do, you can come here for a pleasant walk or your morning jog along the water. From the harbor area, it's a short pleasant walk up the August 25th promenade to the very heart of the old town. Anywhere you look, there is something to discover and taste, from souvenirs and local products to refreshing beverages and gelatos. All around, you will have the chance to admire fine examples of neoclassical architecture. Walking up the promenade, you will see the Church of St. Titus, a cubic structure with a rather unusual architecture for a church. This is why originally the building was designed to function as a mosque, as it was built in 1856, in the last years of the Ottoman rule, and the Eastern architecture influence is more than evident everywhere. In 1925, the mosque was converted to a Christian church dedicated to St. Titus, the follower of St. Paul, who was appointed as the first bishop of Crete in the 1st century. In the 1960s, his relic was returned from Venice to this church, and it is revered to this day as the most sacred possession of the Cretan church. Just a few steps from St. Titus is the city hall, housed in the 17th century Venetian loggia, the most imposing of the old town monuments. Ornate with the Lion of Venice and coats of arms, the loggia was a meeting place for the Venetian elite. The city aristocrats would come here to make new deals, create new laws, announce new taxes, even gamble a bit to amuse themselves. The loggia was restored in the 20th century, and in the lobby you will find a number of medallions celebrating some of the most significant Cretans. Among others, the renowned 16th century painter Mikhail Damaskinos, the first excavator of Knossos Palace, Minos Kalokerinos, and the famous Nikos Kazantzakis, author of Zorba the Greek and The Last Temptation of Christ. Almost adjacent to the loggia is the Basilica of San Marco, the patron of Venice, and opposite to his church
you will see the most iconic Old Town monument, the Fontana Morosini. The Fontana, also known as the Lion's Fountain, was built in 1629 by the governor Francesco Morosini, who tried to solve the eternal problem of the city, thirst. More than 40 people could get water here at the same time, and it is ornate with reliefs of Poseidon, nymphs, and sea creatures. A gigantic statue of Poseidon, Neptune, stood on top, but it was destroyed right after the Ottoman conquest, as Muslims found its nudity rather insulting. What I will find insulting is you visiting my town, reaching the fountain, and actually missing the opportunity to taste a delicious bouatsa. Καλημέρα. Ευχαριστώ. Φαίνεται φανταστικό, This secret recipe was brought to Crete by an Armenian nearly a century ago. Crunchy filo pastry filled with rich custard or soft cheese topped with sugar and cinnamon is an ideal way to start your day in this town. Just sit back, sip a strong Greek coffee, have some bouatsa. It's delicious. And watch the crowds pass by. Enjoying the last sip of my coffee, I just had an excellent idea. Before I leave town, there is another local delicacy I need you to know about. Folks, I know it's just been minutes since our bouatsa, but I found this venue selling the most delicious licumades and I couldn't resist. Esto. Filled with Old Town images and flavors, I have decided that it's now time to show you some of the gorgeous Heraklion country. Hope you enjoyed the ride, guys. I know I did. Here we are in a gorgeous setting in the very heart of Heraklion's wine country at Lirerakis Wines. Follow me inside. I'd like to introduce you to my dear friend George Lirerakis. I found my dear friend George in his ambient cellar barrel tasting, using a wine thief, the instrument that allows him to steal wine from the casks, as this is the best way to determine if the wine is ready for bottling. George, I'm so excited to be here. Tell us a few things about where we are.
Βρισκόμαστε στον οικισμό Αλάγνη, στα 500 υψόμετρο. Είναι ο τόπος καταγωγής της οικογένειάς μας και σε καλωσορίζουμε.
George, I'm pretty sure our guests on Viking cruises would like to know what varietals are cultivated in the area.
Το εινοπείο έχει προσήλωση στις γηγενείς ποικιλίες του νησιού. Η οικογένειά μας αναβίωσε τις αρχαίες ποικιλίες πλητό, δαφνί και μελισσάχη. Καλλιεργούμε επίσης τις ερυθρές γηγενείς ποικιλίες, κοτσιφάλι και μαντιλάρι, και σεβόμενοι τις μεγάλες ποικιλίες του πλανήτη, όπως το σειρά, που έχει εγκληματιστεί άριστα στο μικροκλίμα του νησιού μας, δημιουργούμε μεγάλα κόκκινα κρασιά με μεγάλες δυνατότητες παλαίωσης.
So, assuming I'm a guest for a day, I'm on a cruise, on a Viking cruise, what do you think? Which labels should I be looking for while I'm in Crete?
Οπωσδήποτε να δοκιμάσω την ποικιλιά δαφνή από τον ομώνυμο αμπελώνα που είμαστε τώρα. Ένα κρασί με σπάνιο αρωματικό προφίλ που μυρίζει δενδρολίβανο και δάφνη. Επειδή είναι καλοκαίρι και είναι ζεστή και τα ροζέ είναι τάση, όπως βλέπετε, θα πρότεινα ανεπιφύλακτα ένα ροζέ κέντρος. Ένα πολύ μεγάλο κρασί, το αγαπημένο μου, από την ποικιλία Λιάτικο, από παλιά κλίματα. Σε όσους αγαπούν τα μεγάλα κόκκινα κρασιά τώρα, θα πρότεινα το σύμβολο γεραράχης, Grand Cuvée, που φροντίζουμε κάθε χρονιά που βγαίνει να αγγίζει την τελειότητα. Έχει βάσει την ποικιλία σειρά και κάθε χρόνο φροντίζουμε μια ποικιλία του νησιού να συμβαδίζει μαζί της και να κάνει ένα τέλειο χαρμάνι.
Thanking George for his hospitality and leaving his wonderful vineyard, towards the end of a long, hot day, I took a minute to change into a clean shirt, and I'm now on my way to introduce you to one more friend before the time comes to say goodbye.
So, in case you're wondering what's going on in this greenhouse behind me, allow me to introduce you to a good friend of mine, Stavros. We actually went to school together many, many years ago, and I would very much like you to see what he's farming inside. Shall we? So, Stavro, please let our Viking guests know where we are.
We are in our village, Tilissos, just 10 minutes from the capital of Crete, Heraklion. And this is our family business. We breed snails, and this is the area where we mainly breed them during the whole year.
So, Cretan snails, huh?
Yeah.
I am pretty sure that our Viking guests have heard and possibly even tasted French snails.
Yeah.
What would you say about that?
They would be surprised to know that Cretan snails are also exported to France. And they consider them to be very, very good.
And if Stavros is saying that Cretan snails are better than the French escargot, there is only one way to find out. I should try them. Now, Stavros might be the master farmer, but when it comes to the preparation of one of the most iconic local dishes, then his wife Vaso is the absolute expert. And this is the real Crete. Authentic hospitality and delicious local cuisine.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends of Viking Cruises and Viking.TV, as the sun has already set, I would like to thank you for watching this episode of At Home In, hoping that in the very near future you'll find yourselves on the next Viking cruise to my island so that you can see the beauty of Crete through your own eyes. Till then, stay safe, enjoy life. Cheers.